Hi there, this is Krista Yankee with the Kresge Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar to talk about our RFP, Kresge Community Finance. We're very excited about this funding opportunity and excited to have so many of you join us on the call. I'm just going to run through a few quick logistical things before we get started. Your lines are muted right now. This is a dial-in webinar, so hopefully you can hear us. If you're having any technical problems, let us know in the questions. That's also how we'll be handling questions, is through the functionality in GoToWebinar. You can just type a question in and we can see it, and we'll be getting the questions at the end of the webinar. We will be recording this and we'll be sharing that out. We've already had a question about if we can email that. We can certainly email that out to all the attendees. We're also happy to share our PowerPoint, so we will do that as well. Also, within hopefully the next week, if you go to our website, and this is also something we'll share in email, we're going to be putting together a frequently asked questions. So we'll sort of distill what information came out of this that's most frequently being asked, and we'll share that as well. So hopefully you'll have lots of places to turn for technical assistance as you put together your proposal. And with that, I think we're ready to get started. We have a few, two main speakers today on our call. One is Joe Evans. He is the portfolio manager here at the Kresge Foundation on our social investment practice team. And he's joined by Erin Patton, who is a special assistant in the executive office. We also have our managing director of our social investment practice, Kimberly Cornett, is here as well. So she might pipe in with a few answers to questions as needed. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joe.
Thanks, Krista. Just want to briefly go over our agenda for the call. We're going to share a little background about Kresge and the social investing work here, a bit about where this funding opportunity came from internally, outline what we're seeking out of the competitive proposals, discuss just the mechanics of how you apply, and then leave some time to answer any questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Erin to give a little background on Kresge.
Thank you, Joe. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. I just wanted to start off with a brief overview of who we are. So the Kresge Foundation was founded in 1924 by Sebastian Sparing Kresge, who opened the first 5 and dime store right here in Southeast Michigan and revolutionized sort of the merchandising idea of over time, and parlayed the concept into what we know today as Kmart. His mandate in founding the foundation was to promote human progress. So for more than 80 years, the foundation has realized this through the support of fundraising campaigns for brick-and-mortar capital projects. Beginning in the late 2000s, we shifted away from this challenge grant strategy to a more strategic philanthropic approach with a mission that is defined as expanding opportunities for low-income people in American cities. This mission includes grant making and social investing in arts and culture, education, environment, health, human services, and community development in Detroit. Today we are a $3.6 billion private national foundation, and we also have started a new practice called the American Cities Initiative, which has extracted learnings from our Detroit work to other cities such as Memphis and New Orleans, and will certainly expand to other cities over time.
Thanks, Erin. So this next slide up is really a kind of an internally a slide that we developed for internal communications, but it's helpful to give a little overview of where the social investing is here at Kresge. A little bit of background: we've been operating in the social investing space for probably about 10 years. The first 4 or 5 years of that effort was really kind of opportunistic and responsive to specific grantee needs. In 2009, the foundation decided it wanted to be a little more intentional about this work and brought on Kimberly Cornett as the managing director. And she has helped guide the foundation to sort of broaden, to think of social investing as kind of added tools, and to, rather than to think of us as a grant-making institution alone, to think of an organization with a larger suite of capital tools to apply to the intractable problems that particularly American cities face. This document, in 2015, after Kimberly's been here about 6 years, we had a larger number of social investments made and deployed, and a greater number of our program teams starting to utilize the tool. The foundation took even a more intentional step to institutionalize the use of the multiple capital tools in our work, and evidence this through a commitment of $350 million to social investing work by 2020. And at the time the commitment was made, that was equivalent to about 10% of our total assets. This document helped us frame our kind of deployment plan for our board. There's $50 million is dedicated to mission-related investing, which we don't detail on this slide. That's the work in our investments office for market rate investments that are mission-aligned. On the lower half of this slide, the box on the right, the cross-team cities work and investment channel. It's very internal, language, but we're looking here at mixed income and mixed-use developments in American cities that incorporate aspects that are, coming out of our program areas, our program teams, and we've used this acronym HEART. So projects that promote health, preserve equity, that are adaptive and resilient to the effects of climate change, and that have accessibility to transit. This middle bucket, the custom investments, are, for those of you who are familiar with program-related investing, this is kind of a typical PRIs, where they're kind of bespoke investments that are highly customized and targeted to very specific program needs. They tend to require a fair amount of grant support and really are very tightly aligned with specific programmatic strategies. And then finally on the left is this products bucket, which is where this RFP sits. And in the product bucket, we had a few specific goals. Kind of externally, we want to make more capital available to the groups that are expanding opportunities in America's cities. And we also want to, to help encourage other socially minded investors, both philanthropic and other, to participate in this space. We wanted to try to demonstrate that you can engage in community development work through standardized products, with a standardized approach, with investments that are kind of easy to manage as a group. And then we had a couple of, really one key internal goal here was to set aside a portion of this commitment to have a part of our portfolio that would be a bit more predictable in terms of cash flows, and for us too to be easier to manage, standardized terms, standardized loan documentation. And then there's kind of an added benefit for us internally, where we're able to include more staff across the foundation in the use of this tool. It's having standard terms. It's easier to for our grant makers to begin to incorporate that tool into their work, and so that's just kind of an added benefit for us. And then Aaron is going to speak some more about the both what we are looking for from the proposals, a bit about each of our program areas, and I'd just like to highlight that kind of identifying for us what the programmatic alignment is kind of the key piece of the letter of inquiry stage. We tried to make this first stage a pretty easy lift in terms of what we are asking, how much time we're asking folks to invest, and how much documentation we're asking you to include. It's pretty light. The difficult piece is in articulating in a couple of hundred words, what the financing need that you're facing is aligned or falls within one of our programmatic strategies.
Thanks, Joe. So the first programmatic strategy that we're going to talk to you about are our arts and culture. So our arts and culture team strives to achieve the mission of the foundation, which is to expand opportunities for low-income people in American cities by funding creative placemaking opportunities. So creative placemaking to us is the integration of arts and culture into comprehensive community revitalization. So some of the focus areas for arts and culture include understanding and operationalizing the intersection of arts and culture with other fields and other actors, and also sort of integrating into creative placemaking alongside other local systems such as like public sector planning. Our other area is our Detroit program. Our Detroit program is fully aligned with the objectives and recommendations of the Detroit Future City Strategic Framework. So some of the focus areas underneath sort of the framework include but aren't limited to the green, healthy, and active neighborhoods, the 21st century regional transit, which includes sort of the M1 rail construction, also our investment in early childhood system, which is exclusive to the Detroit team, and also fostering a robust arts and culture ecosystem, which includes our Kresge Arts in Detroit Award, which is awarded to individual artists locally. Additionally, our education program seeks to expand post-secondary access and success for low-income, first-generation, underrepresented students, especially African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, Native Americans, and veterans who are living in the United States. And they do this through aligning and strengthening the urban education ecosystem, which includes the wraparounds like housing, transit, and childcare that can accompany higher education ecosystems. Additionally, building the capacity of institutions that focus on low-income students, such as historically black colleges and community colleges, as well as strengthening the pathways to and through college. And this includes helping low-income underrepresented students complete 2-year and or 4-year institutions. Our next program area is our environment area, and our environment team is really focused on asking the climate question and really in supporting organizations that address climate change. And we do this through supporting organizations that are community-based and influence local and regional climate resilience planning, policy development and implementation, also an advancement of comprehensive climate resilient initiatives in coastal cities in the U.S., so that includes cities like New Orleans, Miami, et cetera. Additionally, our sustainable water resources management advances climate-smart, sustainable water resource management policies and practices. And lastly, we work with helping cities to implement long-term plans for achieving reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. Our next program area is our health team. And our health team works to develop healthy places where you will find their work in food systems, housing, land use, and transportation. Additionally, they take an accelerated community-centered approach to health, where they collaborate between health systems, public health, and a range of community-based organizations that share resources and are responsible for improving population health and promoting health equity. Our last program area is our human services area, and our human services serves to be community responsive. And we do this through advancing the effectiveness and resilience of human service organizations that are innovative, that are approaching very multi-sectoral policy solutions in the human services space, and also include communications and public will building. Also, we try to, the human services team tries to leverage the effectiveness of networks through their work by fostering the next generation of human service organizations and supporting model inventors and iterators in a way that promotes a better practice of human service in the space. I'm going to pass it back to Joe.
Well, thanks, Erin. And so I just, again, would reiterate that spending some time at Kresge.org on our program team pages, trying to, understand what it is that our program teams are interested in is, and then how the financing challenge that you're facing is aligned or would promote or advance one of the things that, we're interested in. And that's kind of the heavier or the difficult part of the LOI process. The next several slides are really about eligibility and process. This is all information that's in the RFP document, which you should see as a handout on the GoToWebinar as well. But so for eligibility, certified community development finance institutions, whether for-profit or nonprofit, quasi-public or private development finance agencies, and by that what we mean there is development finance agencies that are not fully government controlled. Either of these organizations need to have a minimum of 3 years of audited financial statements and need to be working to expand opportunities in America's cities. For organizations that don't meet either of these criteria or other types of organizations, you're certainly welcome to partner with any eligible organization, but that eligible organization would need to be the applicant and the borrower through this program. Here are some of the key terms. So loan amounts between $500,000 and $3 million. The rate would be commensurate with the proposed use of funds with a 2% minimum. Term, 10-year maximum, but we'd be open to shorter amortizations depending on, again, on what the proposed use of funds were. For principal, for amortization, we expect that most of these loans will have 1/3 of the total amount dispersed due in the final 3 years of the term. There wouldn't be any prepayment penalties, but we will ask for a minimum of 90 days advance notice. The loans will be general recourse and non-subordinated. And then we put some kind of brackets around timing. So we plan to issue, I'll go over the timeline in a moment, but once we've issued commitment letters for the loans, there'll be, those commitment letters will expire 8 months after they're issued, and then our commitment to disperse funds would expire 6 months after the closing. So 8 months to close, an additional 6 months to draw. So this letter of inquiry is the stage that's open now. All applications are due by April 29th at 5 p.m. Pacific. Late submissions will not be accepted. I'd encourage everyone to, who is interested in applying, to register on the site early, because it does sometimes take 2 or 3 days for us to turn around your registration. It's most often, same day, but there can sometimes be a delay. So if you are looking to register on the 29th, complete your application on the 29th, it's likely you'll miss the deadline. Once the application period closes, we'll take approximately a month to select applications that we will invite back for full proposals. So that should happen the last week of May. And then selected applicants will have about another month to submit the full proposals, and the firm deadline will be indicated in your invitation, last week of June. And then we expect to vet those proposals and issue financing commitments on or about July, I think, 29th. We may reach out to individual applicants earlier than that, but by the end of July, we will sort of publicly announce the selected applicants. So to complete the letter of inquiry, we're utilizing our online application portal. The website is listed here. It's also in the document that we've uploaded as a handout. Works best in Google Chrome. And if you've never interfaced with us through this portal before, you'll need to create a new account, and there'll be a button to do that. So again, the website is here. If you have questions regarding kind of the process using that online application or anything around registration, you can send those questions to grantsmanagement@kresge.org. And other questions about any other questions, you can feel free to send to socialinvestments@kresge.org. These are a few of the frequently asked questions that have come up so far. The first about if for-profit CDFIs can apply. Certainly, any certified CDFI is eligible. However, only nonprofit CDFIs will sort of automatically receive the companion grant commitment, which is will be equal to 5% of the amount of the loan commitment, and then we would pay out 5% of the amount actually drawn down. So the grant commitment will expire if not used on the same timeline as the financing. In terms of what we're looking to finance, again, this is projects that expand opportunities in America's cities, particularly those that benefit low-income communities. And then we're looking for alignment with one or more of our focus areas. Organizations are welcome to apply as a group. We welcome sort of partnerships. But the standardized nature of this offering is such that we would only have one counterparty to any loan. So each loan through this through Kresge Community Finance would have only one borrower. So one borrower providing the recourse and taking the loan onto their balance sheet. So a collaboration, I could imagine, where a CDFI put in an application, was borrowing funds and then sharing it with other CDFIs or community partners. And then this last question is one that wasn't actually addressed in our overview document, but once funds have been drawn, so you have 6 months after closing to draw down funds, how long do you have to actually deploy or utilize those funds? We generally will expect that all funds will be deployed into projects or on lent within 18 months of the loan closing. So thank you for your time and participation, and I think Erin's going to help with the moderating of some of the questions that have been coming in.
Yes, I'm going to start with the first question. Is there a definition of cities? Is there a population minimum for cities?
So, we haven't been very prescriptive about, even in our grant making, about what a city means. I think we are generally interested in non-rural areas, cities both large and small, so not only sort of the top tier of cities. At a very minimum, we've used requirements that 75% or more of financing be deployed in MSAs. MSAs, as a lot of you know, cover, blanket a huge amount of the country. And I think the sort of less populated an area is, the kind of either tighter the programmatic alignment would need to be, or the greater the innovation that is being proposed. So there could be a bit of a trade-off. I mean, it's definitely city focused, but to the extent that you're looking at very small cities, then the bar might be a little bit higher in terms of that programmatic fit or the type of innovation that's being proposed.
The next question is, can you clarify the timeline requirements for committing and dispersing the loan?
Sure. So, by the end of July, so by like July 29th is I think my target, we will have sent out all the commitment letters. Some might go a bit sooner, but in the month of July, we will send out commitment letters. Organizations will have 8 months in which to close the loan. And of course, Kresge has a role in the timing of the closing. We will be ready to, we will have our standardized loan documents turned around right about the same time as the loan commitments. The loan commitments will be subject to underwriting, which all will happen within that same time period. So 8 months to close, and then an additional 6 months to draw. So we hope to have, close a number of the loans a lot sooner than that 8-month period. The 8 months is the time frame in which our commitment would expire. We anticipate closing some of these loans as soon as August, and then hopefully dispersing soon after. It's our intention to have all of these loans closed and funded by March of 2017, although the maximum amount of both of those timelines could extend it a bit beyond that.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is about sort of the flexibility of the criteria. And so how flexible can the application be regarding the projects the funds will be used for? For instance, if there's a project in development and they don't know which one the funds will actually go to, and what project should they identify in the application?
So
there's 2 projects. Which one should they identify?
I mean, I think I would just point back to the programmatic tie. And so, if these are similar projects, if there's a range of similar projects that you're looking at, then I think what you want to describe to us is, how is what it is you're wanting to finance aligned with one of Kresge's programmatic goals. And then, of course, there's an issue of readiness. If projects that are ready to move forward, are going to be more attractive than, projects that are at an early stage and might never come to fruition. So, but I would really focus on if the use of funds is something that you believe is of interest to Kresge, understanding its strategies and its city and low-income focus, then I would probably I think that's where I would hang the hat.
Also, in terms of sort of the flexibility in a programmatic area, what if the project scope changes after the award is granted?
I think that hopefully the purpose that you applied for hasn't changed, but a specific use within that purpose may have. I think I could imagine that we will have to sort of cross that bridge when we get to it. I think that we're not really thinking of this as project level finance. So we're not thinking of this as, not that you couldn't apply for one project, but in our mind, this is more of to meet the financing needs of the CDFIs and DFAs working in cities. And so if it's really a project specific, you're seeking financing for one particular project, I would probably say that the programmatic tie would be, a bit of a higher bar there too.
Great. And so is this RFP the only way that Kresge intends to determine PRIs this year?
No, not at all. So I think Kimberly, would you like to say a word to that? Or if, what I would say is that on the slide that I showed earlier where we have these custom investments where we're working with specific program teams and we're interested in mixed income and mixed use developments that have kind of innovative components to them in cities, we have a lot of pots on the stove. This is our kind of standard offering for really standardized targeted debt.
I would just add to that this will be the only open RFP for financing this year, and that our other investment initiatives are by invitation only.
Great.
Right, thank you. I mean, we are, if you have something that you believe is strongly programmatic aligned, but the standardized terms are difficult for it, I wouldn't, I would encourage you still to submit the letter of inquiry. It's not a significant investment of time. We have had some talk internally about how through this process we might unearth or rise up kind of compelling projects that we didn't know about, but that are strongly programmatic aligned, and that we have these other buckets from which we could potentially consider investing.
Great. So must the CDFI choose only one program area to address with the PRI, or can it select more than one program area?
Selecting more than one is great, assuming that that tie has to be real. I think there certainly are cross-team initiatives that we work on here. Housing is an area that cuts across a number of our program areas. Food is another area that cuts across a number of our program areas. I think in the system, I think you can select up to 3. But you just want to, if you select more than one, you want to, articulate in a sort of pithy manner how the program is advancing the strategies of those various areas.
Great. So the next question is around the terms of the loans. And when you say that the loans are non-revolving, does that mean when they receive repayment, they can't relend the funds to other projects that meet Kresge's focus areas?
No, when we say non-revolving, we mean you cannot repay portions of the financing to Kresge and redraw. I think if you I certainly could imagine interesting projects where the term of the loans or the projects that the CDFIs were investing in were shorter, and then and there was a revolving component within that fund.
So this next question again sort of touches on the urban versus rural. What about statewide CDFIs working on food access in urban and rural communities? Should they adjust the strategy to focus only on MSAs, and are rural areas not eligible?
So, I mean, I would certainly say that you shouldn't adjust your strategies to kind of conform to this debt offering, right? The food access is an area that we've done quite a bit of work in. Necessarily, there is a rural component on the production side. I think we've been more interested in the space between the producers and the end users or the low-income people, and so that's a space that I think is a bit more compelling for us than at the producer level. But at the same time, I'm one person. There's a team of us that will review these applications, and I'd be interested to see the whoever submitted that question. That might be an interesting application for us to review. At basic, we'd be looking at, I'd fall back to at the minimum of the sort of 75% in the MSA. So that can give some sort of minimum guidelines around, it's not that you can't have a single component that's rural, it's that the focus needs to be urban.
Great. And regarding the audited financials, what if they're presently being completed, but won't be done until the full proposal deadline?
So so I think what I hear in that question is that 2015 would be your third year of audited financial statements. And so if that was the case, then I think, what we ask for at this letter of inquiry stage is that you upload one audit, and it's certainly going to be understandable that some folks won't have their 2015 audit ready yet. So I think that's probably fine.
Does the funding need to be senior debt, or could it be used as sub-debt?
Yeah, so non-subordinated. I mean, this language can be a little tricky. So we are looking to make general recourse non-subordinated loans. A question that came up in a prior webinar was about, could the CDFI utilize the funds to make subordinate investments in a project? And if the programmatic tie was there, and we felt comfortable that the CDFI would be able to repay that debt regardless of how their subordinated investment turned out, then that could be an allowed use. But from Kresge to the borrower, it needs to be non-subordinated. I think there's maybe is a question and relates to groups who are members of federal home loan banks or who have bond applications in through the CDFI fund that require, or maybe other types of financing that require over-collateralization. So I could see a position where we could sort of have an implicit subordination because of over-collateralization requirements from other lenders. But in the document ourselves, we still would be non-subordinated.
Great. So this next question is about organizational eligibility. So are bank and credit union CDFIs eligible?
Absolutely. I mean, where I think this probably isn't the best, I'm happy to be wrong, I don't want to discourage anyone, but where we think this is probably less targeted to credit unions is that secondary capital wouldn't be an eligible use, again, unless a CDFI was taking on the financing on a recourse basis and then using the funds to invest in secondary capital in the credit union, and we were comfortable with the CDFI's ability to repay. Otherwise, I think even at 2%, that my understanding of the credit union model is that taking on 2% debt is probably not, that helpful. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And the next question is also along the lines of eligibility. Are churches and religious institutions, can they be included in these collaborations?
Of course, certainly. I think, Aaron, there is some foundation language, I think, around, it can't be groups that discriminate on the basis of religion or any other basis, but religious groups are certainly welcome to be included.
Okay, and so the next question is, what are you looking for when you ask what other funds are committed or pledged for this particular potential applicant? Their CDFI has a loan pool of $16 million. Can they cite other loan capital we have in hand, or are you looking for new funds committed or pledged?
It's a good question. I think answers to a lot of these questions come back to the programmatic tie. The more compelling, from our viewpoint, programmatically a project is, then the more interested we are. I think we like co-investment. We like leveraging new money, certainly. But if you're looking for, if you need financing to complete a fund and the fund is compelling to Kresge programmatically, then we would like to know who the other committed investors are.
I'll just add to that if the activity that you are proposing requires additional capital to come to the table, which is not identified, I think that would be a factor in readiness. So, to the extent that you have commitments or have expressed to other funders funding that you will need, but that's not in hand, one, please let us know that. That's a factor we'd want to consider, but also plays into how we evaluate readiness.
Great. So our next question is, can the CDFIs that's lending to an affiliate, can the CDFI lend to an affiliate for projects that meet the criteria?
Yes.
The next question is, could the funds be used to finance multiple innovative projects within a city?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one.
I think we're just about out of time, so we can take a couple more questions. And oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was 1 hour.
We have about 20 minutes.
20?
Yeah, 20.
Okay, great. Oh, right. Sorry, I was looking at how long we've been signed on to the call. My apologies.
So the next question is, could the funds be used? Okay, that was the one we just.
I'm sorry.
If a business that deals with triple bottom line, can they apply for the grant? So social enterprises, maybe social ventures, are they eligible for these funds?
So, I mean, you'd have to be a certified CDFI or DFA to apply to be the counterparty. Yeah, so certainly in partnership, social enterprises are certainly welcome to work with an eligible applicant to apply for financing. I think the grant component is a grant commitment to a nonprofit CDFI or DFA. If the proposed use of funds was to pass that grant along to the social enterprise, that would be, we've been intentionally not prescriptive about how the grant funds are utilized within the project. We'd like to know, I think we don't even ask in the LOI state, what the grant funds would be utilized for, but we will, in the full proposal, we will, want to understand that better.
Okay, so the next question is, it sounds like your focus in the human services program area is more to fund capacity building projects versus direct services. Is this accurate?
I think our human services program is interested in increasing the resilience and the capacity of human servicing organizations. They're particularly interested in innovative solutions that are kind of community, not just community responsive, but community inclusive and reactive. So what is the need in a given community, and how are human service organizations kind of working to meet that need? I can understand how that could still be kind of a confusing answer, but there's a little bit more description on our website about the types of things that they do finance. So I hope that's helpful. And I think if there's more specific questions about that, I would ask you to email those in.
Yeah, I think I just would also add, this is Aaron adding on to your answer, but in terms of direct services, I think they also look for organizations that are collaborating with others. So if it is a direct service organization that's in collaboration with like a housing development or through the city government or some sort of networks is something that we really look for in organizations. So something that's a little bit beyond just direct services, I think, is what we're striving for.
Right, that's great.
So the next question is, how similar will the application be to the CDFI funds core, I believe it's SECA FA application?
Oh, much lighter, certainly. I mean, the full application is probably more, a multi-page narrative.
Okay, our next question is, looking at the site, do we start by starting a new PRI RFP? This looks more thorough than just a letter of inquiry.
So I wonder if the person who asked this question is looking at the right place. So I think that there is a place when you've logged into the online portal through Flux. There's a place on the left that there is a place to select Kresge Community Finance, and if people are having trouble finding that, you could reach out to either of those emails we put up earlier, grantsmanagement@kresge.org or socialinvestments@kresge.org. It's possible we maybe can go there. Well, we'll work on seeing if we can actually bring it up screen in the next 15 minutes here, but let's go on to the next question.
Okay. Great. Next question. If an affordable housing developer affiliate of CDFI applied to capital management fund, which requires leverage capital, can CDFI pass Kresge Award on to an affiliate CMS fund focused on regional redevelopment initiatives?
I'm sorry, I'd have to ask you to repeat the question.
Okay. Okay, so if an affordable housing developer affiliate of a CDFI applied to the fund, which requires leverage capital, can CDFI pass Kresge's award on to an affiliate CMS fund focused on regional redevelopment initiatives?
Well, I mean, the questions, I mean, there'll be, you know, it'll come back to the programmatic tie. The more compelling the programmatic tie, you know, then the more latitude that we'll have for variations. I think that you know, when you say regional, then of course that for us will raise the urban-rural question, and I would just, you know, point back to the prior answers to that question. But on at a basic level, I would say yes, that is potentially allowed use.
Will this be an annual competitive RFP opportunity?
No plans today to repeat this in a year, although I wouldn't take it off the table either.
Great. This next question is a personal question from one of the applicants. It seems she's working on a project that is strongly aligned with Kresge's programmatic goals, and I've been in direct contact. But the question is,
I think if the question is about if you're encouraging organizations to submit an LOI if they're not meeting the terms of being a CDFI or DFA.
No, being an eligible CDFI or development finance agency is a gating question.
Right. I think if your project is under consideration and you feel as though you have something aligned, you would need to partner with a CDFI or a DFA for this funding opportunity to be considered. And now I don't have that.
So the next question is, you say projects, but I also heard you say financing for one specific project is not recommended. So should people be applying for multiple projects, or can you just clarify what you mean about having a single project versus multiple projects in terms of the programmatic alignment?
I think, you know, was the question answered at the end there? I mean, I think it really comes back to the programmatic alignment. If there is a individual project for which you're seeking financing, and then it's likely that the programmatic tie, the bar for the programmatic tie might be a bit higher. So I think, you know, again, I'm trying hard not to discourage folks to apply based on what they, you know, hear today in terms of allowable use of funds. We want to understand what the financing needs the organizations are facing. We're interested in a range of projects, and we don't have a sort of set list of things that we're looking for. So if it is one particular project that you're looking for financing for, I would just, you know, be even, you know, a bit more diligent on ensuring that it you know, hits one or more of our programmatic focus areas.
I think you talked about this a little bit earlier, but can you just further clarify how you look at entrepreneurial initiatives, particularly those that are serving low-income communities and human services for Kresge?
Do those fit? I think the question is, do they fit under our human services program? Is that where we sort of place? Do
entrepreneurial efforts fit within human services?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that they would potentially. I mean, I
would not say it's a core activity, however.
Okay, next question is, maybe for Kimberly, would a credit union that applies be eligible for the grant portion as well?
Yes.
Okay, so that answers the question that grants can certainly go hand in hand with this RFP.
I'm sorry, I was working on a technical issue trying to get the portal up. Would you repeat the question?
It's how credit unions that apply, are they also eligible for grants?
Most likely. I mean, I think, yes, I would say that low-income designated credit unions that applied through the program would qualify for the grant as well.
And then there's a question about clarifying what we had said about the audited financial statements. Can you clarify that one more time about what our requirement is exactly for audited financials?
So at the letter of inquiry stage, we're just looking for one audit that you have to upload. To be eligible to apply, you need to have 3 years of audited statements. If fiscal year 2015 is your 3rd year, then you would have to have your audit completed by the time the full application is due. So, you know, if you're a calendar year, 2015 is your 3rd year, you know, your audit is probably getting ready now, but it would have to be completed. You'd have to be able to upload that audit when the full submission is due, which is going to be like the end of June.
Okay, our next question is, what are your parameters for capital funding? And are there parameters for the capital funding?
What are the parameters for the capital funding? I don't know that I understand the question. I mean, the terms are in the RFP PDF that's uploaded here. You know, we hope to disperse funds shortly after at closing or shortly thereafter. There's a 6-month window within which to draw down funds. If your proposal includes, you know, matching financing, you know, we'd be interested to know what the timing of the pulling down of that other money is. Although we might not make that contingent, you know, drawing that other financing probably wouldn't be a contingency for us to disperse.
Great. And so this is a question around just the amount of submissions. So can a CDFI submit more than one LOI?
Yeah, certainly. And what I would say to that is, if you have, you know, more than one project or fund or you know, proposed use of funds that live within different program areas, I think you'd be better off, you know, and you see alignment with the things Kresge's interested in. I think you'd probably be better off submitting multiple applications for each of the specific uses of funds rather than one. On the flip side, it wouldn't be helpful to submit sort of the same application multiple times under different program areas.
Also, this is just a follow-up to the grant question earlier. Could you just clarify the grant portion of the RFP? I think there's a little bit of confusion around the loan versus the grant.
I'm sorry, I'll have to ask you to repeat that one again too.
Yeah, the question is there's a grant portion, asking if there's a grant portion to the RFP, and just wanting to clarify how the grant and the loan go hand in hand or
sure.
not.
So for nonprofit CDFIs, low-income designated credit unions, nonprofit DFAs, any of those types of organizations that are selected for financing will receive a commitment letter for the loan amount, as well as a commitment for a grant equal to 5% of the amount of the loan commitment. So just as an example, if it was $1 million financing commitment, there would be a $50,000 grant commitment. But the grant commitment would be paid out after the funds have been dispersed or drawn down on the financing side. So if it turns out that only half, you know, in the $1 million financing example, if it turns out that only $500,000 is ultimately drawn down, then the grant component would be 5% of that. So in that example, $25,000, and the remaining grant commitment would expire at the same time as the loan commitment expires.
Great. So this next question is around a conflict of interest, I believe. So this particular applicant has a cross-sector partner that's applying for another Kresge grant for the same initiative. And so would there be a conflict of interest if it's a different use of funds for essentially the same initiative?
I don't think so.
Great. Okay. Our next question is, right, so what's your take on or preference for new projects versus currently existing projects? Or in what stage of life do these projects need to be in for them to qualify?
You know, it may be, I'll feel like a broken record, and it may be a little frustrating to hear, but it really comes back to the programmatic tie. You know, I don't think we are, the stronger the programmatic tie, the more of interest it is, and the sort of less concerned we are with this, some of these other questions. So, I mean, yeah. So I think we aren't necessarily looking for new or, you know, in process. I mean, we do have this readiness, you know, frame. We imagine that there is a financing need that is, you know, current, and we have some kind of tight guidelines around the timing for the loan closing and then the disbursement of funds. So as long as your project can meet, you know, those in your, and there's a, you know, a level of readiness, then that's what we're looking for.
Great.
I think we have tackled the bulk of the questions that aren't sort of repetitive. So at this time, Joe, did we have a chance to see Flux or?
No, I know you saw some changes on the screen there. I think that when you log on, after you've successfully logged on to our portal, on the left-hand side there's a button to click. It says something like, you know, PRI opportunities, and then once you've selected that, in the form itself there's a drop-down bar that asks you to identify, you know, what initiative you're applying for, and there's only one choice in that box, and it's Kresge Community Finance. So it should be pretty straightforward, and if folks are having, if anyone has difficulty finding that, you can email to grantsmanagement@kresge.org, and you'll get a response pretty quickly from that.
All right, well, I think that is our full presentation today. We want to thank all of you for joining us. We want to wish you good luck as you put together your proposals. Again, the best email if people have questions is, which one are we? Grants Management?
Well, so for questions related to creating an account, utilizing the portal, working through the application, those would go to grantsmanagement@kresge.org. And then any other questions related to the RFP can be sent to socialinvestments@kresge.org. Both of those email addresses and the website address and most of the information we covered today are available in the PDF document that you should see on your screen in the handout section.
And like I said, we will be sending an email follow-up that has the recording of this webinar, our frequently asked questions, and our PowerPoint presentation. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and good luck.
Thank you. Good luck.